Hello everyone! Last week we checked out the XPeng X9, both the ride and the drive, and honestly I was pretty impressed with its chassis. Sure, there were still a few things that could be improved, like a bit of vertical movement while driving, but the way it absorbs bumps and handles uneven roads, really solid. Plus, rear wheel steering makes daily driving a lot more convenient. Today, we are at Li Auto to test drive their newly updated electric MPV, the Mega Home Edition. We're going to compare it directly with the X9 in terms of ride comfort and chassis performance, and hopefully give you some useful insights if you're trying to decide between them. Now, one of the biggest updates to the Mega this year is in the rear seat configuration. We already covered that in detail in last month's video, so if you're interested, you can click the link in the top corner or check the video description below. This video will focus mainly on the second row experience and overall driving feel. So let's start with the Mega's powertrain and chassis setup. The Mega is a fully electric MPV featuring dual motors, 155 kilowatts at the front and 245 kilowatts at the rear. That gives it a front-to-rear power ratio of about 1 to 1.58, pretty similar to the Li Auto L9. By contrast, XPeng's X9 performance trim has a rather unusual setup, 235 kilowatts at the front and only 135 kilowatts at the rear. That's because XPeng had to make room at the back for both the rear wheel steering system and a fold-flat third row, which left limited space for a bigger rear motor. As for suspension, both the Mega and the X9 use a double wishbone setup in front and a multi-link suspension in the rear, paired with dual-chamber air springs and single-valve CDC dampers. The difference? XPeng sources their air suspension from Germany's Vibroacoustic, while Li Auto uses a domestic supplier. Tire-wise, the Mega runs on 245/60R18S. More cushion, less style. XPeng opted for bigger wheels with thinner tires, 235/50R20. That means a stiffer look, but possibly a firmer ride. Weight-wise, the Mega comes in at 2,785 kilograms, about 200 kilograms heavier than the X9. Alright, let's talk second row experience. First impression? It was really quiet. The quietness felt unrealistic. I've never been in any car that comes near this level in terms of quietness. The cabin insulation is really excellent. Aside from the fan noise, it's quiet. Almost no road or outside noise makes it in. In some cabin noise tests in China, this car even beats Mercedes Maybachs. The captain's chairs are super comfy, soft, wide, and wrapped in smooth high-end leather. Way nicer than what I felt in the X9. And the legroom, massive. The chassis tuning is just like the X9's, pure comfort. It does a great job filtering out small vibrations. Bigger bumps still come through a bit, but they're well damped, no harsh impact. Now, I didn't take the exact same road as I did with the X9, so this isn't a one-to-one comparison, but in terms of comfort, I'd say they're neck and neck. Both the Mega and the X9 come with second row fridges, zero-gravity seating, 21.4-inch rear screens, and side window sunshades. If your main concern is making sure your family rides in comfort, either of these will absolutely deliver. The only real difference is that the Mega just feels a little more premium in its materials. But of course, you'll have to pay a bit extra for that.
提醒同学，动能模式调到最，动能回收模式调到最强。
To really put the suspension to the test, we came to a road filled with massive speed bumps. Yeah, the big, chunky ones. Let's see how this chassis handles. First off, I set the suspension to Comfort Magic Carpet plus Comfort Driving mode. Even when I rolled over the speed bumps slowly, like 15 kilometers per hour, I could clearly feel the rear end bouncing after the wheels came off the bump. Then I switched it to Sport Magic Carpet mode. The suspension performance got better. At a very low speed, which is 11 kilometers per hour, it was able to control that vertical movement much better. At the next speed bump, I brought the speed up to around 15 kilometers per hour. And this time, the difference was really obvious. The rear wheels came off the bump with just one clean rebound, and then the body settled immediately. No extra bouncing, just nice and stable. Next, I dialed the suspension all the way up. Sport Magic Carpet plus Sport Mode, the stiffest combo you can get. Took the bump again at the same speed, and yeah, this time it handled it way better. Much more controlled, much less body movement. Alright, now let's crank things up a bit. I raised the speed to around 18 kilometers per hour to really push the suspension. And yeah, that's when it started to show its limits. The body wasn't fully controlled, and there was some noticeable vertical movement. We tried again at around 20 kilometers per hour over the next speed bump, and this time the bounce was even more pronounced. Next up, we hit a speed bump that also had a crosswalk, so we naturally slowed down to around 15 kilometers per hour. This time, super smooth. The suspension soaked it up nicely. No extra bouncing at all. By the way, if you notice the speed dropping 2 to 3 clicks over each bump, that's not me braking. That's just the bump doing its thing, slowing the car down with resistance. Conclusion? I assume that this car's just too heavy. Plus, it's tuned for comfort, so when you hit these tall bumps at speed, you're asking more than this suspension was designed to handle. If they made it any stiffer, you'd probably start feeling harsh jolts and more unsprung shock coming through. However, there is one thing the Mega does better than the XPeng X9. On regular roads, it doesn't have that up and down soft bouncing that the X9 sometimes gives you. It's a noticeable difference. Also, when it comes to braking, setting the Mega's suspension to its firmest, Sport Magic Carpet plus Sport Mode, really helps reduce that front-end dive you usually feel when stopping. Like this time, I had to brake a bit harder than usual because of the traffic light and the car in front, but even then the nose dip was barely noticeable. Honestly, I didn't even feel it. So yeah, I'd say this is the best suspension setup for the Mega. On regular roads, it still filters out those fine vibrations really well, and when things get bumpy, it doesn't toss the cabin up and down like a boat, which means your passengers won't end up feeling car sick. In terms of power delivery, this car feels almost identical to my L9. It's got that traditional gas-powered vibe. Even in sport mode, the throttle response isn't overly sharp like most EVs. Instead, it's really smooth and linear, and even when you floor it, there's a slight delay in the first half of the pedal travel. It doesn't just dump all the power instantly. That's actually great for folks transitioning from gas cars to EVs. It makes the ride more comfortable for passengers and avoids that jerky, rocket-like acceleration some electric cars are known for. Now on to the intelligent driving system. The Mega Home Edition now runs on NVIDIA's Thor chip, and during the test drive I felt its lane changes and speed adjustments were just a little smoother than on my L9, but other than that, the behavior is very similar. In identical situations, both systems respond in the exact same way, very robotic, almost too rule-based. Take this example. We're coming out of a tunnel and there's a right turn coming up. A human driver would just maintain speed and cruise into the turn smoothly. But this system, it accelerates toward the intersection, then slams on the brakes right before the turn. And when making the right turn, most people would naturally aim for the center lane because the far right lane is usually filled with scooters and bikes. But nope, the system chooses the far right lane, realizes it's blocked, then tries to merge back into the middle. Kinda awkward. One more observation. When driving at low speeds, the Mega tends to follow the car in front a little more closely than my L9. That's actually a smart move. It helps reduce the chance of other cars cutting in. Alright, that's a wrap for today's test drive of the Li Auto Mega Home Edition. Overall, this MPV really surprised me. The upgrades to the rear row comfort and chassis refinement are noticeable. While the suspension still has its limits over bigger bumps at higher speeds, the ride quality on regular roads is smooth and stable. Definitely better controlled than what I experienced in the XPeng X9. The cabin insulation is excellent, the rear seats are incredibly comfortable, and the smart driving system is right on par with the best in the market. Yes, it's a bit more expensive than the X9, but the premium materials and quieter, more refined ride might justify that extra cost, especially if your priority is keeping the family happy in the second row. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with anyone else looking to buy a large electric MPV. I'll see you in the next video.